What if survival horror met classic RPG combat in a way that actually worked? What if you could experience that late 90s sci-fi horror atmosphere with modern visuals and a combat system that demands real timing and strategy? Parasite Mutant caught me completely off guard, and I need to talk about it. This is a game that's doing something genuinely different, blending genres in ways I didn't expect. Stay with me through this first look, because what I'm about to show you is a hidden gem that deserves way more attention. Parasite Mutant is a survival horror RPG set in a distant sci-fi future, and right from the start, it establishes this incredibly specific tone that feels like it's pulling from classic survival horror while doing its own thing mechanically. You play as Nova, a psionic agent who's sent on what seems like a routine investigation to an abandoned island city. Of course, nothing is routine when the place is crawling with horrifying mutant creatures, and what starts as a simple mission quickly unravels into something far more sinister, involving hidden conspiracies and secrets that will completely change Nova's fate. The setup is classic survival horror. Isolated location, cut off from help, mysterious creatures everywhere, a growing sense that something deeply wrong happened here, and you're about to uncover truths that maybe should have stayed buried. The atmosphere is thick with dread and tension, and the game commits fully to that horror aesthetic. But what makes Parasite Mutant fascinating is how it handles combat, because this isn't a third-person action game or a pure survival experience where you're running and hiding. This is an RPG with a genuinely innovative battle system. The combat uses something called Active Time Chain, or ATC, and this is where the game really distinguishes itself. The developers took the active time battle system that was popular in late 90s RPGs, games like Final Fantasy 7 through 9, where time keeps flowing during combat and you need to act when your gauge fills, and they combined it with a three-segment chain system that adds layers of strategy and timing. It sounds complex on paper, but in practice, it creates this incredibly engaging rhythm where you're constantly making split-second decisions. Here's how it works in practice. As your gauge fills up, you have three segments to work with. You can choose to act immediately when a segment fills, or you can wait and build up to a full chain for a more powerful release. But while you're waiting and deciding, enemies are also acting. You need to dodge their attacks in real time, position yourself, and then execute your own actions at the optimal moment. It's this beautiful dance of timing, where you're balancing aggression with caution, deciding whether to play it safe with quick single attacks or risk waiting for that devastating chain combo. What I love about this system is how it keeps you actively engaged throughout every combat encounter. You're never just selecting commands from a menu and watching animations play out. You're dodging, you're timing your strikes, you're managing your energy and deciding whether to spend it now or save it for a bigger move. Every fight feels dynamic and participatory in a way that turn-based RPG combat often doesn't. It reminds me of the tension from action games, but with the strategic depth of traditional RPG systems. The timing element adds genuine skill expression to combat. You can't just grind levels and brute force your way through difficult encounters, though levels certainly help. You need to actually get good at reading enemy patterns, understanding when to dodge, when to attack, when to hold back, and build your chain. There's this learning curve where early fights might feel chaotic, but as you internalize the rhythm and timing, you start flowing through combat with this satisfying precision. Boss fights, from what I've experienced, really showcase the system's potential. These are extended encounters where you need to learn attack patterns, identify windows of opportunity, manage your resources carefully, and execute with precision. They're challenging without feeling unfair, demanding that you've mastered the mechanics while rewarding skillful play. When you finally take down a boss that's been destroying you, it feels earned in a way that pure stat checks never achieve. The progression system is described as classic, equipment-based advancement, and there's something refreshing about that approach. You're finding and equipping various modules onto your gear, customizing Nova's capabilities to match your playstyle. You also earn plus points through combat that can be used to enhance your equipment directly. It's a straightforward system that lets you feel your character getting stronger without overwhelming you with complicated skill trees and stat distributions. What's particularly cool is the new Game Plus mode, which isn't just a harder difficulty setting. It actually unlocks new locations and continues the story, challenging you to further strengthen Nova and complete a final challenge. Plus points carry over from your previous playthrough, giving you a head start but not trivializing the new content. It's the kind of new game plus that gives you real reasons to replay beyond just experiencing the story again. The setting and atmosphere deserve serious praise because the game commits fully to its survival horror identity. This abandoned island city is filled with genuinely creepy and disturbing mutant creatures. The enemy designs lean into that body horror aesthetic, where things are twisted and wrong in visceral ways. You're exploring environments that tell stories through their decay and abandonment, piecing together what happened through environmental clues and the horrors you encounter. The game incorporates puzzle solving throughout, which is another classic survival horror element. You're not just fighting your way through corridors, you're exploring, finding items, solving environmental puzzles, unlocking new areas, gradually unraveling the mystery of what transpired on this island. The puzzles, from what I've seen, aren't frustratingly obtuse, but they require observation and thought, adding variety to the gameplay loop beyond just combat encounters. Graphically, Parasite Mutant uses what they call a semi-realistic anime art style with modern rendering techniques, and it's a really interesting aesthetic choice. Character models have that anime influence in their proportions and features, but they're rendered with enough detail and realistic lighting that they don't look cartoony. It creates this unique visual identity that stands out from both pure anime games and Western-style realistic titles. What's really cool is that the developers included retro filter options, specifically a CRT filter that recreates that late 90s to early 2000s look. This isn't just a nostalgic gimmick. The game's entire vibe is clearly inspired by that era of survival horror and JRPGs. Games like Parasite Eve, Resident Evil, early Silent Hill, and having the option to view it through that authentic CRT aesthetic completes the throwback experience. You can play with modern, crisp visuals or embrace the retro presentation, and both options have their appeal. The environments are detailed and atmospheric, using lighting and environmental design to create tension and dread. Shadows hide threats, corridors feel claustrophobic, and the abandoned city has this oppressive atmosphere that makes exploration feel dangerous. The visual presentation works hand in hand with the horror themes, creating spaces that are genuinely unsettling to move through. Now, regarding multiplayer or co-op, this is a single-player experience through and through. This is Nova's story, her investigation, her transformation as events unfold. The intimate, personal horror narrative and the timing-based combat system are both designed for solo play. This isn't a game where you're bringing friends along. You're alone on this island, uncovering its secrets by yourself, and that isolation is core to the horror atmosphere the game is creating. The outfit customization system adds a nice layer of personalization. You can change Nova's hairstyle, hair color, outfits, and more. It's not just cosmetic fluff either. In games with significant playtime, and especially with New Game Plus encouraging multiple runs, being able to customize your character's appearance keeps things visually fresh and lets you express some personality. It's a small feature, but one that adds value over extended play. The story setup about uncovering conspiracies and secrets that change Nova's fate has me genuinely intrigued. The premise suggests there's more going on than just a simple monster outbreak. There are layers to uncover, revelations that will reframe everything, and a narrative that's building towards something significant. I'm deliberately avoiding spoilers, but the hooks are there to keep you pushing forward to see what happens next. The combination of survival horror and RPG mechanics is tricky to pull off. Too much horror and the RPG progression feels out of place. Too much RPG, and you lose the tension and vulnerability that makes horror work. Parasite Mutant seems to be threading that needle carefully. The combat keeps you on edge because you need skill and timing, not just stats. The exploration and puzzle solving maintain that classic survival horror pacing. But the RPG progression gives you that satisfying sense of growth and customization that keeps you engaged mechanically. The active time chain system really is the star of the show mechanically. It's the kind of innovation that could influence other games if people pay attention to it. Combining the real-time pressure of ATB systems with chain mechanics and action game-style dodging creates something that feels fresh despite pulling from established concepts. It's familiar enough that RPG fans will understand it quickly, but different enough that it feels new and engaging. Performance and polish are important for a game like this, and from the demo, things seem solid. The combat system requires precise timing, so any input lag or frame rate issues would be devastating, but I haven't encountered significant problems. The game feels responsive, which is absolutely crucial for the combat to work. Visual presentation is consistent and professional, creating that cohesive aesthetic the developers are clearly aiming for. Parasite Mutant is doing something genuinely interesting by blending survival horror atmosphere with innovative RPG combat mechanics. The active time chain system gives battles real tension and skill expression, while the setting and presentation nail that classic sci-fi horror vibe. If you're a fan of games like Parasite Eve, or you've been looking for something that mixes horror and RPG elements in meaningful ways, keep this one on your radar. Let me know in the comments if you remember those late 90s survival horror RPGs, and whether this kind of genre blend appeals to you. Thanks for watching this first look, and I'll see you in the next one.